Hearing to order. I'd like it to, for verbal attendance, I'd like to have board members starting furthest to my left. State your name for the record.
Basilio Supos.
Scott Nelson.
Jim Baumstark.
Julie Moon.
James Dolan.
All right, we are now in our public hearing, and we will go to our 2023 aggregate tax levy.
Good evening. As we've been reviewing for the last couple months, on the screen we have our final 2023 tax levy. These numbers have not changed since last month. We're looking at a 9.7% increase in the cap funds. In the non-cap funds, we're looking at 2.55% for a total of 8.75. But if you look at the red circled line, when the assessor has and the clerk have gone through their process, what we actually anticipate is more in line with 5.65% increase overall. And last month, we were asked to try and project out what our fund balance would be in the operating funds, and based on this levy and the decision last month to fund the completion of the construction project, we've got a projection here that shows our fund balance declining slightly over time in FY29 if all the assumptions behind the scenes were to hold true, just below 40%.
All right, are there any questions? This is the third time we've heard it. I just want to reiterate that we're trying to capture our CPI growth and all new property that have come in.
That's right.
Okay. And we are limited to CPI at a cap of 5%, correct?
That's right.
So even if CPI comes in greater than 5% and costs are greater than 5%, we don't get to capture that.
That's right.
Any other questions? Any comments? All right, now we have audience comments. Kathy, do we have any audience comments for the public hearing?
We do not have any comment cards filled out for the public hearing.
Okay, so our audience comment section is closed. We will now adjourn our public hearing and move back to our regular meeting. We're going to move to our approval section. I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there a motion and second?
So moved.
Second. Dolan.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Now we have the approval of the November 20th regular and executive session minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the regular and executive session minutes?
So moved. Moon.
Second, Supos.
Katie, may I have a roll call?
Kenilevich. Aye. Dolan.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Stefani. Supos. Nelson.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we're in our communications section. Dr. Daly, do you have any comments? Great.
Borrow your microphone.
Yes, we're sharing tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Well, we have many guests with us this evening. A warm welcome to all of you. Yeah, but we actually have a lot of folks here tonight. This is awesome. I hope everyone has been enjoying the many festivities that are taking place throughout all of our schools in the district during this time of year. There's a lot of just great excitement and warmth that can be felt when you're in our school buildings. As the winter break approaches, I would like to wish everyone a very happy and healthy new year. If you're traveling, please do so safely. While the December weather has been kind, I think, what is it, Thursday? Thursday's the first day of winter? Can someone check me on that? I think it is.
It's my dad's birthday. So
Okay, yeah, it marks the start of winter, and to maybe take a moment and review our weather emergency closing procedures. December has been, like I said, generous, but we will, of course, send out notifications as necessary as the weather changes during this time of year. So with that, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Daly. It is exciting to see so many people come to our school board meeting. Next, we have our audience comments. Kathy, do we have any audience comments? This is our first opportunity for audience comments. We will have another opportunity if anyone would like to give any. We will move along to our consideration of resolutions in our consent agenda. We have the 23082 personnel report, the 23083 payroll warrants. We have the 23084 vendor warrants, the 23085 2024 workers' compensation insurance renewal, and the 23086 resolution authorizing a supplemental property tax levy to pay the principal and interest on outstanding limited bonds of the district. Is there any questions for any of those before we move forward? All right. Can I have a motion and a second for approval?
Second.
Katie, may I have a roll call? Did you get the second?
No.
I think it was a tie. We'll have James Baumstark as a second. James Baumstark.
Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan. Moon,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Stefani. Supos. Camilleri.
Motion carries. Now we're in our discussion section. This is the best part of the night. We have the 2024-2025 school calendar. Mr. Dorkin.
Thank you. So on the screen is the draft that is attached with the agenda. Tonight is the board's first read of the draft for the 24-25 school year. I'll share some highlights. This calendar, per guidelines and our board policy, matches the 225 school calendar for 24-25 at the Thanksgiving break, winter break, and spring break. The first week of school is the same for students in our district in 225 as is the last week of school. First staff day in 24 would be Monday, August 19th. First student day would be Thursday, August 22nd. The last student day would be Tuesday, June 3rd, and the last staff day would be Wednesday, June 4th. And the rest of the calendar reflects our typical pattern of fall and then second trimester family teacher conferences, the required holidays throughout the year. This particular calendar year on November 5th is a general election holiday, so that would be a no school district closed day. Those are some quick highlights for the board, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
And we'll be talking about this again in February when we approve it.
We will. I would add to the process this year, so this process typically works its way through a subcommittee of our personnel committee. They bring forward a recommendation of personnel committee, who brings it forward to the board. This year we added a pretty extensive feedback gathering process that Kathy may have a few words to add, but we surveyed staff and community about the general construction of the calendar, any particular days to take note of, and then we'll utilize that not only for the construction of the calendar, but for implementing instructional plans, for example, assessments, other time-consuming tasks for students or impacts that families might feel around various holidays throughout the year. So it's not only a calendar construction output or impact of that survey, but practices moving forward that we'll work through our teaching and learning department. Should I add anything to that?
We did have a high response to this survey from staff and families, and it was great information that we shared back with the community. You saw the email that went out. And as Kevin said, Dr. Silverman did discuss this with EDCO, knowing that with many, the diversity of our community, many celebrations and holidays, that we wouldn't be able to have non-attendance days on all of them. So we'll be working on a collaborative process on how to make sure staff is aware of those holidays and can respond to student and family needs surrounding, when students may be tired or may be absent due to their celebrations.
Thank you for making us a more inclusive environment that we have going forward.
So, Mr. Nelson, as you said, then this would be before the board at the February meeting for approval. And then in summary, at the top there, it describes that this calendar will include 176 total student days and 185 total staff days, which is, the staff days are dictated per contract.
One comment, one question. Certainly saw the, for example, the communications around the students and some of the religious celebrations. I know that was a follow-up to some parent comments that we had last year, so it's wonderful to see that that was actually put into practice, so thanks. And it's a reminder to everybody that, input is welcome. Has there been a comparable type of input been included in 225? Because I know we're building a lot of this calendar based on some of those, I'll call it maybe parallel considerations or a parallel framework, or are we leading with some of this input from other maybe communities that have not been represented from a religious holiday standpoint?
Do you know?
I don't know. I know 225 will be talking about their calendar in general again, and I expect they'll be doing some of that input, but I connect regularly with their communications department, so we can share that information.
I don't know if this was part of the question or not, but the high school, they have a calendar 2 years out. So part of the answer to your question, I think, is that we do tend to follow suit. We don't have a calendar 2 years out. So there's a pairing that happens that way.
I think my question is really more around receiving that input, and that are we leading 225 or are we following? And it seems to me that we're actually leading in this conversation around having awareness around maybe a broader holiday framework that is more representative of the community.
I'm proud of the way we've approached the development of our calendar.
Thank you, James. Any other questions or comments on the calendar?
Also, a quick question. Were there any tough choices to make in this proposal recommendation, like things where you're on the fence, or when you put all the constraints on, is there like one answer that comes out?
Well, I would say, Dr. Silverman and our teaching and learning department, student services, everybody in the learning side would like more professional development time with staff. So we have the max in this that we can have with the 185 days. So locating those days is always somewhat of a tricky consideration. We front-loaded in this particular calendar to get before the school year starts, and then that September 27th Institute Day. Dr. Silverman would like even more. I'm sure Kristen Cazares would as well. So that's kind of the trickiest piece, is figuring out where the adult learning, professional development times will go. The rest of it, to your point, kind of falls pretty well in line because of the parameters that are already in place. Did that? I don't know.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, and as much planning as we can do, this actually is driven, at least the beginning of the school year, by some curriculum work we're going to bring to you as well. In particular, the K-5 math adoption process and work for next year. So there's actually a lot of teaching and learning rationale into the days, which is great. It just isn't churning calendar days.
Mm-hmm.
Some intent for our programming.
And then I think the answer to this is no, but the summer construction is not impacting our choice of a starting date here, or is it?
Only to a much less
Smallest degree in the
of a
last 4 years.
degree. What's that?
The smallest degree in the last 4 years.
Yeah, there's still work that will be at Springman, so we kept it in our minds when kind of creating it, but it's not a driving force as it was the last 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Next, we have the Pathways to the Seal of Biliteracy. Oh, I have it backwards. It's fine. I'm sorry, I skipped to number 3, but let's go with it. We'll get back to number 2. Unless you build on each other and we need to. Feel free to clap all you want. We're going to switch back to number 2. That's good.
Are we okay with that?
Yes.
All right.
We'll
Okay.
Okay, we will switch right now to the Springman teacher presentation.
Yes, I am super excited to bring up our trio of educators. Ashley and Lainey and Caroline, you're gonna, okay. So, these 2 and 3 will join us. Amazing educators really exemplify the strong bond between all of teaching and learning. Like, this is just an amazing collaboration. And again, it just speaks to the work we do together, to the degree where these 2 amazing teachers ask students to come after school at night. You guys are awesome. I mean, so amazing. Great work. And I think you're all going to give a speech, right? So with that, I'm going to turn it over and let them share. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. We wanted to start off our presentation tonight just by thanking you all. We have a true passion for co-teaching, and we're so happy to be able to share with you guys that tonight.
Yes, and I think we also just, again, have to say thank you. It is just a wonderful community to teach here. The fact that we have 8 students showing up at 7:30 on a school night to support us, and our wonderful administration is here, and Dina Scheiner, our social worker. This really is an incredible place to work, and we are very, very lucky to work here. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Lainey Foley. I've been a student services teacher at Springman for 8 years now.
And I'm Ashley Ubik. I have been a 7th and 8th grade math teacher at Springman. This is my 11th year teaching, and this is my 6th year co-teaching with Lainey. And I really do know out of the 11 years, these last 6 have been my absolute best years of teaching, really from start to finish. And it really is because of the co-teacher that I have with me and the practices that we're able to do together as co-teachers. So I'm really excited to show you guys everything that we've done and everything that we're so proud of.
We believe that our co-taught class, along with many others, help the district meet its mission, focusing on individual learners and allowing them to explore their passions while connecting with the community around them. It's truly amazing what the students can accomplish in a co-taught classroom.
So when Lainey and I began co-teaching together, we spent a lot of time reading, attending professional development, and we found that a lot of the examples that were given in books were for elementary school or English language arts. It's just a little bit easier to do co-teaching in that style, but we were really committed to figuring out how we can make co-teaching work in the middle school level and especially at the math level. And so we wanted to share with you the things that we have found most helpful.
We start the year by setting our intentions with our students. We really focus on setting those clear expectations and then allowing students to see what an inclusive classroom should look like and what it should feel like. So we focus a lot on helping the students understand that everyone's path to success is going to look different, and that's okay. Calling attention to that for our students has really helped them support each other, and it truly is a classroom in which they build upon each other and encourage each other to be the best versions of themselves. There are many different co-teaching models. We've found with our math classroom that these 4 tend to work best for us. We do them weekly. So we team teach, station teach, parallel teach, and alternative teach. And we're gonna dive in a little deeper on the next slides on what these are. Starting off with team teaching. Team teaching is when both teachers are in the classroom supporting all students. This may look like Ashley instructing on part 1 while I'm circulating, supporting, providing check-ins for students, and then I might instruct part 2 and giving Ashley the opportunity to check in with some students. This allows all students to receive 2 different teaching styles, allowing them to connect differently to the material than they would have with just one teacher. It also allows us to monitor student engagement throughout the whole lesson. We can really make sure that students are doing the work that we intend them to do, and we are able to provide instant correction and extension remediation. So we don't have to wait till the middle of the lesson or the end of the lesson to truly track where they are. We're getting that feedback right away. This style allows us to sit down with a student and walk them through a multi-step problem while instruction is happening. We're also able to better answer student questions because there are two of us in there, which really encourages the students to speak up and use that math vocabulary.
This part really is different from having just one teacher. There really is no hiding when you have two teachers and one is teaching and the other one is around checking every single person and being able to get quick responses from students and teachers. This is really a big difference in a co-taught classroom. Another method that we use is called parallel teaching. So what parallel teaching looks like is two teachers in two separate rooms, splitting the students up into two groups, teaching the same lesson. So that lesson could be the exact same. Sometimes we split the kids randomly. Lainey might ask a question like, who do you think would win in an arm wrestling competition? And whoever raises their hand for Lainey goes to her room, and whoever raises for me goes to my room. And it's just completely random, and we're teaching the same thing. Sometimes we could choose that based on the level of need for the student. So if the student needs an extension, we might teach, one room might teach a little faster and get to 3 or 4 extension challenge questions, and the other room might go a little slower with some more basic examples and really review the major content. This could also look like separating the students based on their learning styles. So if there's some students who really benefit from direct instruction, we might have one room full direct instruction. We might also have another room that's more group work where they're collaborating and kind of problem solving and doing more inquiry-based learning.
Another strategy we love to use is the alternative teaching benefits. This is what you think of when you think of whole group, small group. So one of us will be instructing the whole group of students while the other pulls a small group ranging from, 2 to 5. And this is really another opportunity that we can customize the learning based on what the students need. We tend to split them up and provide remediation, but we also provide that extension for some of our students as well. This really helps them feel like they matter, and it helps them feel like we are seeing them and customizing it to their interests. So it allows us to have a deeper, meaningful connection to our students.
And the levels of Common Core math really have changed with the matrix being applied, where it's very challenging sometimes for students to get into advanced math. We now have a really wide range of learners in our on-level class. So when there's one teacher, we do our best to kind of make sure we're helping out the students who need a little extra support and giving the challenge to the ones that are higher level thinkers. But with two teachers, it is so much easier and so much more effective because we have opportunities to pull small groups to do those special cases, whether that's remediation or extension. Another method we use is called station teaching. So this is where we have 4 or 5 stations in the room. Students are in groups of 3 or 4 and they rotate through the stations. And those stations can be leveled to certain needs. They can be random. And what's really nice about this is that we can customize each station to be a specific content piece or a specific level. We can also cover a wide range of content. And when you do this in a not co-taught classroom, sometimes it might be hard to manage because you have so many activities going on at once. But in a co-taught classroom, you can have at least one station that is directed by a teacher, and then the other teacher can remain circulating and helping any of the groups that might need it.
So all of these co-teaching models are really important, but we know that co-teaching goes beyond the work that's done in the classroom. Both teachers really need to commit to making it work, which means that both teachers are bringing in the area of expertise and balancing out those responsibilities. So the teachers, whether it's the special ed teacher or the gen ed teacher, are really taking ownership of that classroom and setting those systems and structures up. So Ashley and I make sure that we're aligned on our different procedures, and we both have voice in that. Speaking about our management, we make sure that we are both recognizing positive and negative student behavior and that we are both addressing it together. It really allows behavior plans to be followed very well, and it allows us to pay attention to the good behaviors that are happening in the classroom because they're being reinforced by our attention more so than the negative ones are.
Communication is another thing that Lainey and I make sure we do together. So anytime we have to call home, we try our best to do it together. And with 2 teachers, 2 different areas of expertise, I think we really have a really great foundation for starting any parent conversations or any plans that we want to put in place. Any emails as well, we write them together, we send them together. and any extra support that we're providing. So Lainey and I offer office hours every Friday morning. We're both there during those office hours. We don't rotate, we're always there together. Review sessions that we offer, we both attend the review session. So we really do view it as our classroom, and it's a space where we are both true teachers in the room.
Both teachers are represented in this space, so we both have a teacher desk within the classroom. Again, just those visuals that allow the students to see that both adults are teachers here, and the language that we use within our classroom, in our instruction, but also in the materials that we create is very beneficial for our kids as well.
Sometimes in my last block when I don't have Lainey, I'm still saying our or we've done this for you, and I think they're like, I don't know if she thinks someone else is here, but it's just so embedded in me now because we do so much together. So Lainey and I knew that things were working well just by how the kids were engaged and what their test scores looked like, but we also wanted to take a look at their NEWA data because that's what we use to do our SIP goals here, and we wanted to kind of compare how our students were meeting their goals compared to the school. So last year was the first year Lainey and I were able to co-teach together for 2 out of our 3 blocks. So that was really where we really started to see a big difference because we were able to collaborate and really change our curriculum for those 2 co-taught classes. So we went back and looked at the students who met their NEWA growth goals starting from last year, from fall to winter. And as a school, Springman students, 52% of Springman students met their math NEWA goal. When we zoomed in to look at the grade level, so that was us in 7th grade last year, 57.7% of students met their goal. And then Lainey and I looked specifically at the students that were in our co-taught class, so that was a mix of students with and without IEPs, and 70.3% of the students met their goal. So we were very, very proud of that. Thank you. Yes. Okay. We're not a one-trick pony, though. Don't worry. So we did again. We looked from fall to spring of last year as well. So the beginning of last year to the end. Springman overall, 61.5% of students met their goal as a whole, which really is really incredible. Just that number is really wonderful. I think our SIP goal was 63%, so that's really high. As a grade level, it was 66.9%, and then again, just pulling out Lainey and I's classes, we had 73.7% of our students meeting that NEWA growth goal. So again, we were just so proud, and we knew that the work we were doing was good, and we really knew that we weren't surprised at all. We were so proud of them and the work that they put in, and really we were very happy with these results. So unfortunately, the NEWA data the window is still open, so we don't have the full school or grade level data, but the data nerds that we did go through and do our own data on our classes, and so from fall to winter of this year, 70.7% of our students in our co-taught class met their goal.
That's great.
So, yeah. So other than the learning that's happening, I think there is something very special about our class. Again, just seeing that these wonderful students are here right now to support us just shows that our class is really something special. And with 2 of us and our different energies, we really do feed off of each other. It has been so wonderful learning from Lainey. She's an incredible, incredible teacher. And really, sometimes when you teach for a long time, sometimes you kind of get in a rut or you get in your own path, and just having another person that is such an inspiration to you in the classroom really allows you to become the best possible teacher. With 2 of us, we feel like we do a great job connecting with students on every level. There's 2 different teachers, 2 different ways of thinking, and so we find that we can probably hit almost all of them with the needs that they have. And then, like I said in the beginning, I really do feel like the last 6 years have been my absolute best teaching years, and it's because I have such a wonderful co-teacher. The things we're doing in the classroom is really something I simply can't do by myself, and it's because I have Lainey and because we're able to implement such wonderful things for students and for teachers as well to really feel that satisfaction and pride in my career.
So we're very proud of our students' math growth, but we want to make sure that they feel supported and connected to our classroom. So we asked our current students to fill out a survey, and it was voluntary and anonymous. The first question we asked them was, have you noticed a positive difference in a co-taught class compared to a non-co-taught class? And 96.8% of our current students said yes when asked a yes or no question. And that's very good because 8th graders can be tough critics. So that's a good number.
The toughest
Wait till
critics
you get to high school.
sometimes.
We also asked our students, if given the choice, would you pick to be in a co-taught class? And 93.5% of our students answered yes. So again, tough critics, but good feedback. We have some wonderful students over here, and as you can see some of their comments, they really do enjoy a co-taught class. If there's any student that wants to come and read the comment they said, they can come and use my microphone. But there's no pressure.
Oh, here they come. All right.
Having two teachers is like a big benefit because if a student needs individualized help, there are two teachers like there to help you.
We can go to two different classrooms and have a smaller group.
I like how like one teacher is busy and the other one is like helping other students because like as she said we can get like help from both teachers.
Thank you.
We also sent a survey home to families just to get a little feedback from them as well. And one of the questions we asked was if they could rate the impact a co-taught class has had on their child, 0 to 5, 0 being no impact, 5 being strong positive impact. And we did get 100% on this one, so no tough critics on there. But again, I think it really goes to show that this extends beyond just the classroom. The families feel it as well, and they are supportive of everything that we're doing. And if given a choice, would you pick to have your child in a co-taught class again? 100% said that they would. A couple of the feedback from families really kind of points out that they understand that if one of us isn't catching something that the other one probably will, really we try not to let anything fall through the cracks, and I think we do a really good job of that. And just every student feeling doubly supported, two teachers in there, two different ways of thinking is really helpful, and that we do a lot of differentiation and lessons that we're able to provide something really engaging for students of all levels.
So some things that have helped us in our co-teaching partnership is entering it with an open mind. Being told that you're co-teaching can seem a little daunting or scary at first, but if you really have two teachers that want to do it and enter it with an open mind, an open dialogue, it can really be so successful and very fulfilling in your career. Another thing that has really helped us is having two spaces. We both have two classrooms that are right next to each other. That allows us to use multiple different co-teaching models. And because we're right next to each other, it limits the transition time, so no wandering 8th graders on our watch. That's really nice. And then the common plan time, we have collaboration time at the middle school, so thank you all for that. That is really a huge part of our co-teaching success, being able to meet together, plan together, create materials together, analyze the week and say, what co-teaching model do we want to use, which day, and why, setting that purpose. Our other 8th grade math teachers are also benefiting from this because the materials that we create, we give them and we share them with them as well. So it's helping the other students as well, even if they aren't in our co-taught math class. And then the commitment to education. Ashley and I want to stay up to date on best practices and our researching, so we're always thinking outside the box and coming up with some crazy ideas, and we just say yes and then decide how we're going to do it. So we have that commitment to each other, which has been really great, and it's helped me grow as an educator, seeing all the wonderful things and ideas that Ashley brings in.
So at the beginning of the year, Lainey and I set some professional goals for ourselves, and one of the first ones that we wanted to do, I'm hoping that we're kind of checking off our list tonight, which is just to highlight the co-teaching benefits. I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what a co-taught classroom looks like, that it's really only helping students maybe with IEPs, but really based on our data, it's really helping everyone. We're able to get that extension in, we're able to get those challenge questions in, we're able to help the remediation groups, we're really allowing to get that focus for all the needs of all students. We'd also love to encourage more co-teaching in D34 as it's available, because we know the power that it can have, whether it's just social emotionally or it's for teacher fulfillment or true learning. It really is a wonderful it's a wonderful way to run a classroom, and we would love to see it continue on. We are hoping to lead some professional development. We've worked really hard to create some systems that we know are working, and like Lainey said, it can be really daunting when you start. Where do we begin? How do we do this? And so I think anything that can help new co-teachers or maybe experienced co-teachers just have some new ideas is great. And we would love to continue or increase our co-teaching partnership. So 3 years ago, we had one co-taught class together. Now we have two. So obviously, we would love to co-teach together all day. And the more time we have together, the more able we are to create wonderful teaching, learning opportunities, and more creative resources for students.
Before we take any questions or comments, we're going to pass it over to Caroline Van Gaza, who's going to share more about other co-teaching partnerships within our district.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Vingazzo, and I'm one of the instructional coaches for student services that support co-teachers like Lainey and Ashley. So thank you guys so much for sharing all of the amazing work and bringing your students here with you tonight. I want to tell you just a little bit about some of the partnerships that have gone through the Co-Teaching Academy in the last 5 years. We have had partnerships in every building across our district, in kindergarten through 8th grade. And specifically, that's included 27 LBS 1 or special education teachers, 22 English language learner teachers, and 48 general education teachers. And so those partnerships are fluid, and sometimes the specialists will work with different general education teachers throughout the course of those years, but we're really excited when partnerships stay together for as long as they have, such as Lainey and Ashley, because we really can see that impact of their parity and their planning that is really put into place to be able to meet so many needs of all the students in their classrooms. So we're really excited to be supporting 12 partnerships this year with ongoing coaching as well as professional development, such as what Lainey and Ashley have shared with you tonight. So thank you guys for coming and sharing all of the good work with your students.
So thank you again to all of our administration for always saying yes to our crazy ideas and letting us be creative together. Our grade level team also is very supportive. And of course, Dr. Silverman, thank you for being our facilitator here tonight, and the rest of the district leaders. And thank you here on the Board of Education for letting us share our passion of co-teaching. So we would love to take any questions or comments if you have any.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. First of all, Lainey and Ashley, thank you so much. It's this type of innovation that makes me happy personally that I have my kids in this district, and they're going to end up at Springman at some point. Out of the 4 models you presented, how do you balance which one to use? Do you find one to be more effective than the other? How do you make that? How do you guys make that decision?
So Lainey and I sit together usually towards the end of the week, and we look at the lessons for the next week. And it really just depends individually on each lesson what we think. So if we know there's a really challenging lesson coming up, then that might be a day where we're doing the divided teaching, so teaching at the same time. And then it really just depends on what the lesson is. But I think we do probably mostly the first 3. I think the station teaching is really good for towards the end of the lesson, or the end of the chapter for review days. But I think we focus mostly on the first 3.
The great thing about math is that it builds upon each other, and then the hard thing about math is that it builds upon each other. So that also factors into which model that we choose to use. Sometimes there's just an order that the students need to receive the information in. So even if we don't split for the whole class, sometimes we split for the second part. So it really is just flexible based on what we're teaching. We think about what we're teaching, and then we always think about how we're going to teach it.
And you said you've applied this to both 7th and 8th grade in the past? Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a follow-up similar to, if you found that there's certain parts of the curriculum that are better for different models that you could share with Dr. Silverman that he could implement across the district.
Before Christmas.
Absolutely. We'll have that on your desk tomorrow morning.
Well, Dr. Silverman's going to get an email from me with all sorts of new analytics that we're going to tuck into with NEWA data, but I'll spare everybody. Thank you both. It's really exciting. I'm not going to foreshadow, but one of the things that is on our agenda for tonight is to talk about an adjustment to the middle school curriculum and timing. Not to hold your feet to the fire, but to what extent would a change in the timing or the kind of the module and the block schedules impact your co-teaching and you think the student experience, so that we can kind of bring that into our conversation?
I would love more math minutes. I could do a 4-hour math class every day, and it would never be enough time. I think math is just different, though. I think there is so much of a difference sometimes between the levels of students in the class. So we find the 80 minutes to be very helpful, especially when we want to utilize transitions. So when we are switching classrooms or we're doing station teaching, it is really helpful just to have that extra couple minutes that we know we have a little bit of wiggle room. Of course, all of these can be implemented in a 60-minute class, but I think we've loved having the 80 minutes, and we think that that's been a really nice time frame for us.
Yeah, it's hard to answer. There's positive and negative to both, and we will make whatever work as long as we can stay together as co-teachers.
And I don't know what our students would say about a 4-hour math class, but they look like they're on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how many students are in a total co-taught class? Is it like 50, 40?
Thankfully, no.
I think our block 1 is about 24.
24, yeah.
And then block 2 is a little bit bigger, smaller. 21. So 23 and then 21, I believe.
Because I was just trying to think like how this could be scalable, and like, if you're thinking an average class has 1 teacher and 20 students, to really implement co-teaching everywhere, you need to have 40 students in a co-taught class. And I'm just wondering, like, at that kind of, would it work at that scale, or does this benefit from the fact that it's a relatively normal class size that has 2 teachers in it?
I think it benefits from being a relatively normal class size. I think if the class size got a little bit larger, that would be okay, but putting 50 students in a classroom, that could be challenging.
So I mean, does that mean you mean like double the number of teachers to do this everywhere? Okay.
Potentially.
Just checking. Okay.
Your math's correct.
Anybody else have
But
any?
clearly it pays off. There's
Yeah.
benefits to it, so it's nice to see that when you can reduce, when you have the higher intensity. I'm a math teacher myself, so it's great.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Now we get to go to pathways to the seal of biliteracy.
All right, thank you. So tonight we are excited to share with you a plan that we've had in place for pre-COVID. And we're really excited just to share with you the ways that we would like to elevate the incredible superpower of our multilingual learners, a path that will help them when they go to high school. And so we've called this the Pathways to the Seal of Biliteracy. The Seal of Biliteracy is an actual recognized acknowledgement on a diploma at the high school level. We would not be issuing the seal. We would help the students on a pathway to get there. It is a way to recognize high achievement in 2 languages, English being one of them, and they're typically the home language or another language as the other. And by creating this pathway, what we are hoping to see is more of our bilingual students, namely our Spanish-speaking bilingual students, being able to attain this seal of biliteracy on their diploma. One of the things that we did hear from our colleagues at Glenbrook South was that the students had the proficiency, they just didn't seem to know how to get there. And so what we wanted to do is create a way to help them to be successful when they get to high school by establishing some routines in our district. So Sylvia and Ben will introduce themselves and then share the intricate plan with you.
Good evening. I'm Sylvia Gorski Duarte. I'm the family resource teacher for our district. I support all multilingual families and students in our district. And this is just one of the ways I want to highlight the language strengths of our multilingual students.
And I'm Ben Carnell. I'm a bilingual teacher. This is my 5th year here at Atia Middle School. I loop between 7th and 8th grade.
So we wanted to start by explaining what exactly is the Seal of Biliteracy currently at GBS, and this is across the state of Illinois. There's 2 parts to the requirements to obtain the Seal of Biliteracy, and they can be achieved at any time during their high school career. There's an English requirement, and that can be met through one of the following criteria that you can see on the screen, whether it's ACT, SAT, Access, or an AP English exam. The other half of the high school Seal of Biliteracy is a world language requirement, and that is required at an intermediate high level. And there's many avenues that a student can show this language skills, whether it's an AP exam or other exams that the high school allows students to take. From Apple, Alta, there's a Greek one, Bulgarian one, many different languages. And the state level for the high school, there's an intermediate high level, and if a student doesn't obtain that level, they can attain the state commendation level, which is intermediate low. So there are 2 levels of the world language requirements.
So the reason that we want to create a program here in Glenview that will lead to the high school program is what we can see on this screen. We want to elevate our multilingual students, recognize the accomplishments of our students who speak English and an additional language. 2 is we want to recognize the importance of language learning for all people, the cognitive and the life benefits of having 2 languages. We want to promote our families' language skills. Many families don't appreciate the value of holding on to those home languages, don't understand the value that they can have cognitively and in life. And this is also going to allow us to align with what Glenbrook South is doing and help us to funnel students into that program with some more intentionality.
It also aligns with many of our missions and visions and our views in District 34. It aligns with our SIP plan, defining student success in many pathways. So literally the word pathways, but in here we're talking about their multilingual pathways and their multilingual skills. It also matches with our mission and vision to aspire, explore, discover, and connect using different languages. Family engagement is also really important. By bringing in our families and fostering and letting them know that we value their home language, we're elevating their home culture, their pride, and involving them in the process. By letting them families know about this award that is at the high school level, families will know, hey, this is something I'm going to encourage my student in the future. That way, when they get their freshman year, they can already take their Spanish exam or their Ukrainian exam or an Urdu when they get to the high school. It also connects with our EDI work that we're doing with staff, with students, celebrating and highlighting diversity that happens throughout our district. And this year, the Department of Education very recently announced bilingualism as a superpower as something that's really important to our country. And this perfectly connects and highlights it with that, that the students who are multilingual already have this cape they're wearing that is their home language skills and their multiculturalism.
So this slide shows our pathway, and Raquel mentioned that this started, I think it was like the winter of 2020, you know, with a workshop that was put on by...
It's like 8 years ago.
Yeah, if your memory goes back that far, mine does not. But it was a workshop that I attended put on by elementary and high school districts in LaGrange that explained how they went about doing this, and that was really our starting point. Sylvia and I started around that time to start planning, and then some delays happened. But then last year we got back into this in earnest. We got a team together. We started to research some of the criteria. We discussed what we wanted our Pathways Award to look like. especially now this year, we've been collaborating with the key players. At this point, the presentation you're seeing has been seen by not all the teachers in all of our middle schools, but by many of them. And we've been collecting feedback since the start of this school year. Last week, we presented to the Education Committee. No, last month, we presented to the Education Committee. And this month, we're here speaking with you. We're going to spend the second half of this school year getting our timelines finalized, sorting out the logistical details, and the plan is to launch the Pathways to Biliteracy at the start of next school year.
The high school actually allows students to test in 50+ languages. We're going to start with 3 and then scale up. Realistically, we have to start small and work towards including all of our languages. We're starting with Spanish and French because there are global languages that we teach in our school district. And because we have a dual language program, we have a strong Spanish BPAC, we have heritage classes that we're developing. There's a lot of involvement in the Spanish language. Another strong community is the Mongolian community in Glenview. We now have a very active BPAC. We have after-school classes that are happening at Westbrook and Glen Grove in the Mongolian language. So we want to honor that community that is unique to Glenview and the language skills that these families bring. That doesn't mean we want to dismiss other languages. My parents would have signed me up on day 1 of freshman year to take a Polish exam if that existed at the time. So we want to make sure that families like my own know about this before their student gets to high school. So they're aware and they're encouraging their student to continue studying languages and to honor their home language. Many of our students can and will have 2 seals on their diploma. They can get their home language and another language that they choose to study at the high school. That would be an amazing goal to have more and more of those students graduating with 2 seals of biliteracy.
So this top half of the slide we've just seen. These are the requirements for the state seal of biliteracy. And now below are our suggested criteria for the Pathways to Biliteracy Award for Glenview 8th graders. The general gist that we're going for is at the high school level, the requirement is what's called intermediate high. It's at the high range of the intermediate band, not yet advanced. And so a middle schooler who is achieving novice high will be considered to be on the pathway to achieving that. If you look, the idea is for each of the high school requirements, the 8th grade requirement takes it and scales it back a little bit to honor kids who are on the way there. Access 4.0 will then advance to Access 4.8 in high school. The MAP reading score is derived from a study published by NEWA. It's linked in this presentation that correlates NEWA scores in 8th grade with ACT and SAT scores in high school. So that's based on research as well. And this is something that other schools who do this award have also done. And you can see that in addition to that, then there's also a grades pathway, A's and B's, consistent A's and B's in language arts, consistent A's and B's in global language. This came from other models that we looked at, including in LaGrange, elsewhere in Illinois, California, and elsewhere, has a grades pathway. What we've added to the grades pathway on the global language side, the world language side, was performance on the integrated performance assessment. That's a test that was developed by global language teachers at Atiyah and Springman about 5 years ago. And that way, this way the award won't simply be something that you automatically get if you have good grades across your classes. Integrated performance assessment is a way to truly measure that you are achieving proficiency or on the way toward achieving proficiency in that language.
All right, and there's always a cost, right? So in order to assess our students' high level of proficiency, not just their ability to get through the classes, but they are going to have to demonstrate reading, writing, listening, speaking proficiency. There are exams available that we can administer to help them, again, go through this process and be prepared and understand the high level of expectation we have so that they can be ready at the high school.
So then this is the third requirement. Every middle school that we looked at that has a pathway to biliteracy award, in addition to the 2 requirements that are derived from the state seal, has a third component called commitment to biliteracy. This makes the award something that students need to commit to and work towards, even though the requirements on that are pretty modest. 4 hours of community service that makes use of the target language. We'll have more details on that coming up. And a one-page written essay on the topic in preferred language. This is another way to make this, it's a modest addition that makes this something to commit to and to celebrate.
And to see the real-life purpose of this language.
So the service opportunities are ways that students can engage and use that language. Many of them are involved in the school setting, but many of them are out in the community. That is to show that the purpose of learning a language, or to use your home language, right, is to extend that communication between people that you might not otherwise communicate with. Whether it's at a school event, being a greeter, attending a PTA meeting or a BPAC meeting, or like example here at ATIA, there's a French week where students would promote the students studying French, engaging activities throughout the week, celebrating, honoring the French language, supporting our BPACs, reading a story to a younger student, out in their church, in their community, in their language schools, just being involved in their home language and the target language they're learning.
And none of this is intuitive, so what we know we have to do to help our students be successful is have a guide. Someone who is their cheerleader, someone who's providing them with guidance, making sure that they are on the track, you know, because of the grades and the testing and building those habits. So we are proposing a stipend that would require additional work from staff, because they will be reviewing student grades, communicating with parents. That's going to be a really key component to letting parents know what they can do to support this effort, and then communicating with students too, to make sure that they're on track.
So this has been what we've been up to so far for this school year. You can see that the first version of this particular presentation was given to principals back in the summer, and we spent the fall discussing this with our global language team especially. Through those conversations, we fine-tuned some of these requirements, made some adjustments to what our plan would be. Last month presented to EDCO. We've spent the past month talking to grade level teams at both middle schools, what they call the super team meetings. That's all the grade level teachers in the B blocks, the core classes, as well as interventionists and special ed teachers, multilingual teachers. We've collected more feedback that way, and we've been keeping the important stakeholders informed on what the plan is going to be. So in the coming half school year, we're going to be drafting a committee. We are going to get some interested middle school teachers who want to be more involved with planning further details together. Some of them we've been in conversations with over the last few years sporadically, and we're going to meet a few times this year to work out some of the remaining details and logistics. We're going to be presenting at both building councils in the spring. We want to talk to both BPAC, Spanish and Mongolian, before the school year's up. And toward the end of the year, link up once again with the GBS Seal of Biliteracy team to make sure that they know exactly what we're doing, know when and how we're going to be starting, and so that they're prepared to meet our students when they graduate 1 year later. We'll be announcing this more generally to middle school families in the spring through a newsletter, and again in the fall, and that's when we are going to start our rollout.
So rollout, like Ben mentioned, would start this upcoming spring, connecting with all teachers and staff involved, and identifying students that we would be monitoring through our current 7th graders, incoming 8th graders. Because the first class that would stand up for graduation is the class of 2025. So starting in September, we would inform families and students, invite them to join, and learn about what exactly this award is at the middle school level and what it leads to in the future at the high school level. We would collect students who are committed, who are interested, and their families, and then winter and spring we would actually do the testing or monitoring the grades throughout the whole school year. And then in May, at the award ceremony and graduation, Ben and I might cry as our students were recognized for their language skills. And then we would collect the data of all these 8th graders who are already on that pathway and make sure that it's definitely shared with GBS. It'll be important for them to continue to monitor the students and to encourage to take the exams or to be on the pathway to actually get the seal of biliteracy in high school.
And just one thing that's not up there, because this is the rollout for that first class, that first 8th grade group that'll have 1 year to kind of learn about the award and work towards it. We still need to work out what the plans will be to communicate this with next year's 6th and 7th graders. It's less urgent with them because they will be the ones that will have more than one school year to know what it is, get informed, and start working towards it. And so here's a list of useful links at the end of stuff from the Illinois State Seal of Biliteracy. The National Seal of Biliteracy organization has suggested middle school awards, and that was another starting point that we used. They suggested 2 different levels that match the high school's state seal and state commendation. We decided that it would be better to have just one. It was slightly lower level, that everyone would be honored at the same level. So it's somewhat less rigorous, but it indicates that you're at least on the path towards getting that commendation. With a little extra work, you work towards the seal. Information on how they do it at how the program works at Glenbrook South. We linked the college readiness linking study from NEWA and through in the Department of Ed's new bilingual is a superpower program as well, which has other information, actually, some up-to-date data on the progress of the state seal around the country.
And how this transfers to real life, the Illinois State Board of Education recognizes the seal of biliteracy that a student obtains on their high school diploma by not having them take the target language proficiency like the 3 of us had to do to prove our proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, writing. They will already have that recognition if they should choose to become an educator. And at the universities, a lot of our universities and colleges will honor 2 years worth of foreign language at the college level. It will be part of their graduation information. Obviously, there are no grades issued, so it doesn't become part of their GPA. And a lot of businesses do rely on international work, where even 80% lean on Spanish speakers to help at the workforce, in their workforce. Questions, comments?
Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Alex?
I had a quick question. So on the slide for the high school attainment, it said one of the qualifying numbers was a 480, and I assume that was the SAT verbal. Is that the standard SAT, or it had an acronym next to it, which I wasn't?
EBRW.
Yeah, is that something that's modified for non-English?
No, it's not modified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just
I
curious.
don't know the abbreviation, but it's not modified.
Okay, so that's
it's the
that's
standard
standard,
ACT,
yeah.
standard
Okay.
SAT.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's just stand for the score. Yeah, we don't live in SAT land.
I was just curious. It's been a while since I did the SAT, so.
But no, it's not like a language learner SAT. That is
Got
the
it.
SAT.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the evidence-based reading and writing section, they call it.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
I looked it up.
I was listening to them.
I know.
Great.
Co-teaching going on.
That's co-teaching.
Staying on topic. Really, yeah. I just wanted to comment, I love this. Not only obviously supporting the benefits of bilingualism and doing that, but I have a student at GBS, and frankly, I've found it kind of challenging to draw a clear line from curriculum in middle school to high school, so I can kind of get a feel for how much work has gone into this to create that line, and I definitely have a feel for how much it's going to help families like my own sort of with that transition. So thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about this. My daughter took Spanish at GBS, and she ended up getting her seal of biliteracy, and they don't talk about it a lot. I mean, it's really hard to find out about it. She just kind of heard a teacher talking about it, I think, at the time. So I love that we're building a pathway so that kids can understand that this is something that can be really useful as they get into the business world. I'm asking for a little work. I don't know if it's possible. I know that we're going to try and enact this for next year. Is there a way to backwards look at some students that have A's and B's in these classes over 6 of the last 8 semesters and maybe just give them a flyer that they could look at so when they get to high school next year, our 8th graders,
Oh, the current 8th grade.
current 8th graders, because
Yeah,
it's,
that's not a bad idea.
I mean, it's just a thought that some of our 8th graders could be performing, and they might not know about this. It's not something they really promote as much as you think it is.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work with GBS to make sure we're sharing the right information with our current 8th graders.
Thanks, great. Anyone else?
I think the timing is pretty awesome with the announcement last month for what you guys were working on for many years. So kudos to you. But with the administration's announcement with the Department of Education, there's going to be some money coming out for some of these types of programming. So we're just encouraged to kind of monitor what the Office of English Language Acquisition is going to be putting out there for both research to prospectively look at the performance of those programs and potentially support a broader communication campaign within and across the community with tools that you all might be able to use. Like they mentioned an app and a toolkit that's already coded in multiple languages, so it could really accelerate our ability to use things that others have created to complement the work that you have all put in. So thank you so much.
Thank you, it was awesome. All right, next we have our middle school schedule presentation as foreshadowed by Dr. Dolan.
Can I bump you? I will.
I know. It's free lunch tomorrow.
Look at this line.
I know. We need more table.
They need more microphones.
Yes.
We can both.
We're loud, we're good.
I love that.
You need that microphone?
Okay, I will go ahead and begin. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you. I am Brian Engel, Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Innovation. We'll introduce ourselves real quick. This is actually a group, a leadership group in terms of tackling and looking at our schedule as a whole. And after they introduce themselves, I'll tell you a little bit about our background, not our background, but the background of the group, what we did, the process we've gone through, and then really where we're at right now in that process.
Diana O'Donnell, Principal of Atia.
Megan Russell, Principal at Springman.
Lisa Engel, Assistant Principal at Springman.
Allison Thorne, Assistant Principal at Atia.
Claire Bonsberg, 7th and 8th grade language arts here at Atia and GEA Vice President.
Nanette Ross Meredith, Math Interventionist at Pleasant Ridge and GEA President.
So I think the first thing to just recognize is why are we talking about the schedule? If you know anything about scheduling, it is a very complex process, and there are lots of moving pieces when you make changes, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But basically, what's happened is Dr. Deli has been going around, other administrators have been going around over the last couple of years, and we also have new administrators who have been experiencing our middle school schedule, hearing from students, hearing from parents, hearing from teachers about the good, the areas for growth. And Dr. Deli then challenged me, or charged me, didn't challenge me, he charged me. He probably challenged and charged me with bringing together a group of our district leadership to start to talk about some of the things that have come up. How could we or should we address them? And then developing a process in which to gain feedback on that. And then ultimately coming forward with a recommendation to be seen by and vetted by our staff so that they can have a feel for something. There's a lot of different processes that you can go through in order to get to an ultimate outcome. We decided to understand that as a district, we've done them all. I've been in Glenview since 2004. We have used every avenue possible from this, from starting with teacher generated, from starting with teacher administrator, from starting with parent, like all the structures that you can imagine we have used to come up with different outcomes. And this was where we were at with this stage of scheduling and looking at. So if you look at the presentation, we talk about why are we talking about the actual schedule. We wanted to first look at how could we assist in addressing and related to student engagement and behavior, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there are pros and cons, again, to 80-minute schedules, 60-minute schedules. There are still junior highs out there that run 45, 48, my daughter goes to one, minute schedules. And again, for everything you have a pro, and you likely have a con. And our charge as a group was to balance all of those to try to develop and find what is the most appropriate environment for our students, where we're maximizing learning, understanding and cultivating positive behaviors, and being able to bring together all of our content so that each thing had its value in our schedule. And so we talk about student attention, engagement, behavior. It was one of the things that was identified with some of our 80-minute blocks, lacking the ability for that component, being able to have the attention of a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader for that long on a content. Could some students last? I have a daughter who could last 4 hours in math. I have a son who probably can't last 45 minutes. Every classroom has a range. And what we're trying to do is develop and bring forward what it would be the best environment for us as a district that we could support moving forward. Daily access to ELA, science, social studies, and math. If you've had students go through our district, you have probably, if it's been in the last 10 years, you've had your child experience probably something different if you have one child than another, where we currently have a structure where math and ELA are run every day. Social studies and science run every other day. So we run a 3-block schedule with 4 classes. So looking at that and trying to say, we have the 80 minutes, is that appropriate? We are running 2 classrooms or 2 subject matters every day and then another subject every other day. How does that fit into our bigger picture? How do we fit in mathematics into science? How do we fit in English into our social studies and more blend them than exclude them from each other? And then the last one was to how do we optimize our support structures, our teaming, our special ed, our EL programs, so that they are able to better support and engage with our different teams. I think I alluded to earlier, there is a complexity as it relates to the schedule. If you're doing any type of change here, it has an impact directly on something else. Everybody, and trust me, we have gotten all different types of people, staff, I'm sure other districts, we looked at stuff, have a best case scenario for certain things that they're looking for. What we were trying to balance is the collective schedule as a whole and how we could address the whole child throughout that schedule. And I'll use a prime example. If you make a change, any minute change, without coming to the board and saying, hey, we want more minutes in the day, that time's gonna come from somewhere. And so then you're prioritizing, rightfully so, that time. So if you take 80 minutes and you put it to 60, what are you doing with that 20 minutes? Well, for us, and you'll see at the end, or you saw already in the board packet, prioritizing that time to go into a core classroom. If you take from an encore classroom and put it into something, then you're taking from that. If you take from the beginning of the day, everything has a give and take, and you have to balance what is the benefit and how does that play into the structure that we're going. So it becomes a huge mathematical problem. We have a spreadsheet that we use. I don't know which one of the wonderful people up here developed it. I know they both use different models in terms of spreadsheets, but you literally put something in and makes your day, okay, all of a sudden we're getting out at 3:45. And that's not what we're coming here to request. So again, for those that haven't been on the board or had kids go through, there is some historical context on the scheduling, and we just dated back to 2010. There were conversations in 2010, changes in 11, changes in 17, changes in 20, and then looking at 23. And really, what we're trying to propose with this recommendation is for this to really be an ongoing conversation, having a foundation that we believe is strong, but still having the ability year after year to look at tweaks to make it better versus outright major adjustments, so that you don't get into a position where you're looking at a schedule and making a major change or making minor tweaks to certain classes, to certain times, so that it's easier to transition, it's easier to just take on as an entire school. To give some perspective on what we've done throughout the processes, this group did research starting in May, looking back at all of the work that was done from 2010 forward, also looking at best practices that's out there, experiences. We have individuals that have taught at multiple middle schools as well, not just in our district. We also have historical knowledge with Allison and myself, having been in the district. Claire, I can't remember how long you've been here, but
It's been 9 years now.
so you've experienced a lot of the different changes as we've gone through, and bringing all of that in to work that we did from June, July, and August. And actually in September, we brought forward a first draft of a schedule. That is not the schedule that you are seeing. We brought forward a first draft, provided that for teachers, allowed them to provide feedback, allowed them, all of our administration met with teams in their team meetings during the week, also provided a form for each building to provide different insights into what maybe positives they had, what concerns, what areas for growth that they thought maybe we should tweak. And we took all of those into consideration. It does not mean all of the recommendations were taken into a new schedule. Some recommendations completely contradict another recommendation. You make this change, it causes an issue here. You make that change, it causes. So again, the balance of trying to work through that. We made some major changes. We had inaccurately taken away from our encore classes too many minutes. So adding those minutes back to make that, taking away from other stuff that we had also wanted, but knew that there was compromise in what was best to move forward and how we could find other ways to accomplish those goals as a district leadership and building leadership. We took that draft, the second draft back, we made tweaks, let people review it, made additional tweaks, and then you're looking at that third, fourth draft of a schedule for the district. We've also presented this information to EDCO last week to, again, get additional feedback from our structure in terms of what they would say, what they feel is, again, for EDCO, it was more about the process. Have we gained insights from all of our stakeholders? Here's an outline, and I can share the presentation with you. This is just all the steps that we've gone through. You'll note in December through January, there are bold items, board conversation. We are going to take feedback from here. I'm meeting with PTA Council tomorrow. We've met with PTA to, again, see what else, other insights that maybe we've missed as it relates to the schedule. We can attest that if we had the perfect schedule, and I've said this in every meeting, I'm a broken record, we wouldn't be here. We'd be out on the road selling this perfect schedule to everybody who's willing to listen and pay for it. It's hard. It's a complex process, and it's very dependent on what your focus is, what your area of expertise, what you have, and then we take all of that in and look at it globally. How does it impact the entire student? How does it impact our students in EL, our students with special needs? How does it impact our schedule, or our teaming to a degree? How does it impact passing period? All of that comes into play trying to maximize that schedule. And then here at the end is the actual schedule. One of the things that we want to make clear is that there is no grade for any schedule, for any column. We have grade A, grade B, grade C. That was done strategically because if I'm an 8th grade teacher and I believe I'm grade C, then I may have my own personal feelings about what schedule I want, and that's valid. I have my own personal feelings about my daily schedule as well. And so what we wanted to remove was that bias of this is how it impacts me, and more, how do all of these schedules collectively impact students? How do they impact what we're doing? So that part of the process has not been decided. Once the schedule goes through final modifications and approval, then the buildings and the districts will work with our team leaderships in the schools to say, okay, grade B is 6th grade. And by the way, that's not necessarily what's happening. I'm just saying as an example, grade B would be 6th, grade A would be 7th grade, C would be 8th. Any order you want to say it in, that's when we would come up with that. You'll note that Wednesday is late arrival, so it does have a different schedule in terms of shorter class periods, but consistent moving forward. I'm going to provide this as an opportunity for things that I left out, or we can dive into questions. Does anybody here have anything they would like to share before questions? When you do it multiple times, you feel like you missed something because you say it different. I say it different every time.
3 times the charm.
3rd time's a charm. Questions from the board?
So, are all 3 of these would be implemented simultaneously across?
You are correct. This is a middle school. This would be the middle school schedule, and you would put in, and I'll just do it for an example purpose. Grade A is 6th, grade B is 7th, grade C is 8th.
At both schools.
What?
At both schools.
At both schools.
Doesn't necessarily have to be that way,
but at both schools, correct.
It's like that's a lot of random passing periods.
That's what I was going to ask. How do the bells go off every 15 minutes? And
They don't.
They don't. So they can speak to that.
Good.
No bells because of,
Wow.
you're not across the board doing 45.
It's not just that. There's 3 minutes and 4 minutes.
Correct.
Scattered throughout.
Yeah.
How is that going to work?
The reason there's 3 minutes and 4 minutes is due to the end time that you need to have with the 40-minute chunks. So we do have a little flexibility of like moving those couple minutes here or there. Our main thing is that we have to make sure that the encore classes, the yellow or the A blocks, that those are all at different times because that's the same teaching staff. So we kind of have to layer it. The other layer with the minutes is that having extra time like after recess or helping between transitions between the lunch periods to give a little bit more time. So really with the amount of minutes in our day, that's why we have like maybe a 61 here or there. Look, it's after lunch. It's going to give them a few more minutes that they got to get up, or well, we got to get up. They have to go across, right? So just depending on how the students move within the buildings.
So
just ensuring that there isn't overlap in class. So you have to take that from non-instructional minutes, so that then goes into your passing periods. And the thought behind where that could be placed is from like a B block, which is our longer core content area. Those classes generally are closer together, so 3-minute passing there. But from like a B block to an A block, those classes tend to be a little bit further within both of our buildings, so that would add an additional minute, which then allows for our A block classes not to overlap and have those teachers be able to prepare between those classes. So there's no overlap or right up against one another. If it ends at 10:19, it doesn't begin at 10:19 a.m.
So I guess if I could just ask one clarifying question. If we look at grade A.
Yep.
All right, so we've got a 4-minute period between lunch and then B3. And that's a 61-minute block. But then a 3-minute period after B3 to B4. I'm trying to understand how if we're having close classes with the B blocks, right? Why we would add a minute on B3 as opposed to B4, where we're going to be transitioning from the B block to maybe a different part of the building, where we already have actually a 4-minute passing period there from 1 to 104. And then when you look at grades B and C, we've got inconsistency in terms of 61 minutes for a few of the Bs and maybe not. Like, again, there's a couple thematic things here that I would appreciate maybe a little bit more clarity on. You know, the trade-off between 1 minute in a block. Appreciate the consideration and that transition from maybe one part of the building or lunch to the next set of really instructional, right? Versus how we had 1 or 2 minutes just to round out the day between the different grade A, B, and C.
I think the intricacies come in with playing the time. If it lays out, like if there's a A1, a 101, then we can't have the lunch start with the corresponding time. We can still look at the minutes to like really look at like the best transition times and get those numbers to fall with the ones. That's totally doable, and we can dig into that to like the lunch. That's a perfect example. That's going to take time. By the time they get to recess, they're going to take a while to regulate and get ready back in learning mode. So those 1 minutes here or there, we can look at to see if they're better positioning for those.
And like, you know, and I'll pass it to the board members, but like B4 on grade B, those last 2 minutes at the end of the day are not going to really be probably super meaningful. If those could be positioned potentially to facilitate the rest of the day differently with another minute in a passing period or something, it might be worth consideration.
And the turnaround time is pretty tight, so you start taking a minute here and adding it there. If you look like 1 o'clock, A3 releases, and our teachers have to teach A1 for 6th grade. If you reduce the amount of time or add to a time, then you're starting to have an impact on the transition within the classroom. So that would be a grade level change from B to A. So having 4 minutes to switch that classroom completely over to a new grade level. It is the same content, but definitely leveled within those A block classes. If we get to like a 1 or 2 minute, that's just not enough transition time for our staff as well.
I'm not suggesting reducing the transition time. I'm suggesting if we can increase it with some of those transitions to meet the need that you just highlighted with 6 to 8.
Yeah, increasing the transition time will take away from instructional.
Well, why? Because right now, I mean, there's only a few select blocks with like 61 or 62 minutes, which seems to be filler. And
yeah, so like maybe I can explain.
Sorry.
Don't like look at the B, the 1 o'clock time. So that class ends, but then that same group of teachers has to start again at 104 in order for us to get 40 minutes in for that other grade level band. Do you see that? So
no,
see how it ends at 4? That 1 o'clock time?
Okay, it ends at 1.
And starts at a 104?
Right.
Okay, so we have to have 40 minutes in those sections for those classes. So that's where that timing, where those greens line up, that's kind of what Brian was talking about. There's only so many ways to slice the apple in order to get all those encores in for 40 minutes, if that makes sense. That's those little details of that. But we can still look at some of the minutes.
As we explained at EDCO, we are continuing to look at
Yeah.
tweaks in components. To your questions and stuff, there are some things that probably aren't being as articulated right now because we don't have the actual formulas in front of us that do, like I've even said, why are we doing certain things absent knowing exactly how the schedule works and how the people are moving between classrooms and the actual staff. But certainly look at, and I understand what you're saying, is if we have those filler minutes, perceived filler minutes with 61 or 62, is it possible to move them around so that they're not and kids have more available time? That's what I'm hearing you say?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
we know
perfect.
that we have block that we want to, the core class is 60 minutes.
Correct.
And the additional classes, 40 minutes.
Correct.
We got to bake in a 30-minute lunch. We've got to have a start time and an end time with transition periods. How we allocate those spacer minutes
Yes.
is all I was asking.
No problem. We'll take a look at it, and if we are able to make a change, we'll bring that back at February. If not, we'll explain why not in probably, hopefully, clearer terms.
But there are teacher transitions that have to go across grades, right? That's what's driving some of that.
I'm trying to say, can we create that for both students and teachers, some of that transition as opposed to put it in a 1 minute or 2 minute
Additional.
Yeah.
Instruction time. I appreciate You guys really seem to notice schedule like back and forth right now. The way you're answering your
They are
questions.
amazing.
It's pretty amazing because you're actually, I could see in their head, you're thinking about teacher transition, student transition, all that. And so it's amazing how quickly you're able to just look at this and like I'm moving around when you're saying A1, grade B to A4, grade A, you know.
It is
So
a seal of
it tells me that your thought process, I'm sure you're waking up in the middle of the night thinking about where you can capture a minute and add a minute somewhere else. My only concern is the 10:22 lunch period.
Yep.
It's noted.
Yep.
It seems a little early for some students, so.
Yeah.
So maybe there's got to be some baked-in snack time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is
No.
it currently?
10:56. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, both of them concern me.
Four?
You know, so the former middle schooler and current middle school, they go out to the bus about 7:35, and they'll return from the bus about 4 o'clock. So in grade A, in that instance, they're having lunch, 3 hours, but then they're going 5 hours.
Correct.
And then obviously the reverse is true for grade C. Now I get that it was probably tough to move that lunch thing around, but and so if the lunch itself can't be moved, I mean, we're gonna need something, 'cause that just seems really hard.
Yeah.
Maybe that grab-and-go section at Springman will be very utilized.
In other words, something, correct.
Yeah, I mean, it was not too recently, we approved that, so maybe we can utilize that new space we're gonna give you, right?
Correct.
Exciting stuff?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, good. But yeah, I'm just looking at
It
the
is.
hours, I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
man,
Yeah.
that's, especially in the grade C, like, a bunch of kids like tapping out,
Yeah, so you run again, take time from here, make time here. It was a major, Matt spent, I don't know how long, but a long time to come up with a schedule. He's like, I'm gonna get lunch at 11 o'clock. Sorry, I'm on top of this. And I'm not gonna have lunch at 1:10, meaning this lunch will start here, this one. And he came back and he was like, I got it.
And then Megan's like 5 minutes.
Like, you don't have it. Again,
I waited about 10 minutes.
Yeah. So there, I don't want to, make light of that time because we are very aware of that lunchtime and how would we address students later in the day and how would we help support that is something part of the program. It's similar to how do you address any of the conversations about curriculum? How do you address any of that, the program components? What we were not solely focused on, but strategically focused was on the, you call it the bell schedule, even though we don't have bells, but the schedule. And how do you make it so the curriculum, the balance, the bringing into 4 core classes, the opportunities to not reduce significant minutes in our B blocks, the opportunity to not, and one of our major things was don't have a 1 o'clock lunch, same counter to having a 10:22 lunch. If you start later, you bump everybody down. It feels like there's gaps between, but there's also encore classes that have to fill. We will continue to press and work our best to bring forward a schedule. I think the core concepts are what we're focused on, and that is, do you as a board, value the 4 blocks, the opportunity to bring social studies and science back into a daily instructional pattern. And then we spend time looking at how does that work? How do we continue to tweak it without taking time from our encore? Where does that come from?
I value the consistency you're providing for a student going forward, especially regulation of behavior and also their ability to concentrate for amounts of time. So I appreciate the work. Your schedule going forward has a lot of people and a lot of that you have to talk to and explain it to. The students alone, that first few weeks of school is going to be really crazy.
Oh, 3 days. They got it in 3 days.
Okay, 3 days.
I do actually just have a question about the curriculum component.
Yeah.
And I think it's great to have the 4 core classes every day. I think that's going to great addition. But just when you bring that in, then you're gonna have to add curriculum you're gonna have more hours of science and social studies per week. So just wondering how that's getting addressed.
Dr. Silverman. Besides Dr. Silverman sweating, because as Kevin alluded to way back an hour and a half ago, more time for PD is always the opportunity. But if you want to share just like the thinking.
Well, the standards that drive, in particular, social studies and science, so next generation science standards and the social studies standards actually were released on a national level, and Illinois recently adopted them. One key piece, as an example, of the social studies, which is also heavily influenced in the science, is inquiry. That is a wonderful opportunity that we have. They sort of lost time over these last couple of years, so to bring that back in, it's going to be easier to respond to that, and right out of the gate, that's where our heads are going in terms of engagement and learning. Look, straight up honesty, English language arts on the other end of the spectrum, we're going to have to think through that. Brian alluded to this interdisciplinary model with English language arts into social studies and science. So there's going to be plenty of teaching time for them.
Yeah, one of the things that we have, again, laid out is that once approved, whatever the schedule is that the reason to be not so far ahead, but ahead is that February, March, April, May, June, time over the summer is to look at, we'll have to adjust our staffing based on this. Not staffing in terms of numbers, but staffing in terms of where people specifically are. And that is a concern for individuals. But also look at how do we address social studies every day? How do we address, we're fortunate, we're in the midst of the math work. ELA is doing their work, and that would then be incorporated into that process because it's already being worked on. Claire, I don't know if you want to speak for your subject in ELA?
Sure. I mean, as you're aware, we have adopted a new writing workshop model, which has been implemented at the K-5 level and is now extended through to middle school. Our reading workshop will be, soon to follow in the next year or two. I think there are incredible things that can be done in an 80-minute block, as Ashley and Lainey could attest earlier in our meeting. But from my vantage point in the classroom, 60 minutes, as you said, Scott, is really that sweet spot in terms of student engagement. But I think that interdisciplinary component is really exciting to me. I think there are so many opportunities, particularly in our ELA, curriculum, which is really 2/3 of the year. If you look at 3 trimesters, the first is narrative at all 3 grade levels. The second is informational, and the third is argumentative. And so 2 of those 3 are nonfiction in nature. So I know our team is really excited at the 8th grade level about the opportunities that will provide to do more interdisciplinary literacy work with our social studies teachers, our science teachers, really across the board. So there are a lot of fun ways to look at how we can play with that shift in numbers.
As long as you make it exciting for everybody going forward, it sounds great.
I just, to follow up on the curriculum, I'll put my math teacher hat on for a second here too. A 25% reduction in like the math minutes could be kind of significant depending on if it's like the same curriculum but 3/4 of the time. I mean, that could be I could imagine that being a pretty stressful thing and it feels like there's slightly less opportunity for cross-disciplinary. I could see like where in ELA you could incorporate more writing into the history to like hit some of those targets. You maybe a little bit with science, but I think it's kind of different in terms of math and science. And so it would just be something there's some risk involved by doing this, and just point that out. Like, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but it's a big change in that component.
Agreed.
That's why I'm interested to see all the stakeholders you're addressing in the next couple months, how you come back in February.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go dream about minutes. That's, oh, sorry. All right, next we have the 2024-2025 student transportation and building use fees. Eric.
Okay, so tonight is the first night of a discussion about most of the fees for the 24-25 school year. Just some information, most of the fee revenues go toward offsetting costs, but don't pay for all costs in most areas. Registration fees were increased for this current school year, and fee waivers were successfully introduced for all students this school year. Typically, we just do a study of fees and with our comparison district group and put this in order just to show you that Glenview sits somewhere in the middle of the districts we compare ourselves to, at least for first grade. Same thing for fifth grade. This is our public pre-K program fee for some of the public districts that we compare ourselves to, Park Ridge, Wilmette, some of the neighboring districts. And finally, the recommendation, a couple different components to this one. It's an increase to the preschool fee to $3,800. An increase to lunch prices across the board at 10 cents, and this is based on our participation in the National School Lunch Program. And there's a formula that sort of dictates that our program isn't subsidized by the federal dollars that we get. And then finally, a recommendation to propose a full-day kindergarten fee for next year at the February board meeting.
Any questions? All right, we'll talk again in February.
Thank you.
Next, we have audience comments. Kathy, do we have any audience comments?
We do not.
All right, we have no audience comments. We will move along to our consideration of other resolutions. We have the 23087 2023 final tax levy. Can I ask for a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented?
Second, Dolan.
Katie, may I have a roll call?
Lobster,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan,
Aye.
Stefani, Stupo,
Aye.
Maleta,
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have the 23088 resolution designating the funds to receive a reduced extension if required under the property tax extension limitation law. May I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved. Baumstark.
Second, Stupo.
May I have a roll call? Katie?
Moon,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan,
Aye.
Stefani, Stupo,
Aye.
Maleta,
Aye.
Lobster.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have the 23089 resolution to establish a fiscal year and authorize development of the 2024 budget. May I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented?
I just had a quick question on this one. I think it's probably just a typo, but in the calendar, it says approve resolution to establish a fiscal year and prepare budget. I think we're doing that tonight, but the date says 2/13/24 next to it. Just, can we make sure that,
I'm sorry, say that again, please?
the calendar attachment, the 2024 budget calendar,
Yeah.
if you look at the first item on there is, I think what we're doing right now. I'm just saying the date listed in the calendar is
It's the wrong date.
2/13/24. I just think it's a typo. It's the wrong date.
It is a typo, and actually on the agenda, it's for the 25 budget as well, not the 24. Yes, thank you. We'll get that
Okay.
corrected.
We'll have that corrected
Yes.
and fixed in board
Yes.
docs. Thanks. Thanks, Jim. Can we have a motion and a second to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second, Baumstark.
Kitty, may I have a roll call?
Dolan,
Aye.
Stefani, Stupo, Maleta,
Aye.
Moon,
Aye.
Lobster,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we have the 23090 asbestos abatement memo and exhibit. Is there any questions? May I have a motion and a second for approval?
So moved. Dolan?
Second, Kimmelovich.
Katie, may I have a roll call?
Stefani? Supos?
Aye.
Kimmelovich?
Aye.
Moon?
Aye.
Baumstark?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Dolan?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have the 23091 construction change order for approval. May I have a motion and a second to approve?
So moved, Kimmelovich.
Katie, may I have a roll call?
Supos?
Aye.
Kimmelovich?
Aye.
Moon?
Aye.
Baumstark?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Dolan?
Aye.
Motion carries. And our final resolution, we have the 23092 press issue 113 policy updates for discussion and action. Is there any questions? Everybody have a good time reading those? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve.
So moved. Moon?
Second, Baumstark.
Katie, may I have a roll call?
Kimmelovich?
Aye.
Stefani? Supos?
Aye.
Moon?
Aye.
Baumstark?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Dolan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Great, now we're at our report section. We have the number 1 FOIA report, the number 2 student True North board meeting report, the number 3 construction change order report, the number 4 referendum expense report, the number 5 monthly budget report, the number 6 current financial projections, number 7 student enrollment projections, number 8 following meeting agenda. Does anybody have any comments they want to make about the reports?
I guess I just had one quick question. It's like maybe Kevin or Dane. On the student projection, where do we think we're actually going to net out? Looks like the trending is continuing down, but do we think that's going to hold true? Are there other macro factors that we might want to buffer against?
Yeah, I mean, my hunch is that the trend continues downward. Oh, my hunch is that the trend continues downward. This is always a good opportunity, I think, to remind folks that there are some areas within the community that are under discussion for proposed development, and those developments do bring student yields with them, and so to the extent that those areas are developed and populated with children, that would be, of course, subject to change here. But I think barring something like that, I think we could expect a slight downward trend. Any other insights on that, Kevin?
Only dependent upon what time range we're talking about. So the next 3 years out look pretty flat or downward, and then further out, we kind of come back. And to Dr. Daly's point, the full report, if you look on page 26, there are some yields that are projected for some of those developments that have yet to fully come to fruition about whether they're going to occur or not. But
Great, thanks. I'd like to wish everyone a happy holidays and a deserved break. If you get some time off, I hope you have some great time with your families. And with that being said, I'd like to call the meeting adjourned.